What's up, everybody? My name is Del. I'm here with Marcus Hollinger, VP of Marketing at Reach Records. And this is a work in progress podcast. And this is our scheme to convince Andy to put out a whole bunch of records that for one reason or another haven't come out, and they're finally seeing the light of day. So today we're gonna talk about a record called So Far Gone Challenge that's actually out now. Y'all can listen to it right now. But we're gonna touch on some of the backstory behind the record, the context around like why it never came out, and then some of the themes that, some of the larger themes that are in the record. So talk to me about this record, bro. How did it even come to life?
So this, I don't know if y'all remember a couple years back, there was the So Gone Challenge that was happening. It was like a social thing. Was it
the Monica joint?
Monica, she, put out the instrumental. Everyone started rapping. So I was scrolling through my Instagram and I seen a buddy of mine, Black Keys. He's with John Bellion's camp and Beautiful Mind, and he was freestyling over that beat. And I just remember I was like, oh man, this beat is fire. Like, it's got the flutes in it. And it said So Gone Challenge. And so I started to figure it out. So Far Gone?
Yeah.
Started to figure it out, like, oh, people are just putting bars down. So I went to the studio immediately. I had like a 16 that I wrote for like something else that never came out. And I was like, this would be a perfect opportunity. So I recorded it in like one take. And then I just put my little camera on and I recorded myself rapping it and I uploaded it. Like, might have taken me a total of 15 minutes. Like top to bottom, to record everything, put it out. Next thing you know, that thing just starts picking up all kinds of momentum. When you look on the back end of Twitter, I saw it had like 2 million impressions or something like that. So that thing was just like moving. And I just remember being blown away, like what is happening with this thing? And it was like the least amount of effort I'd put into anything, and it was like getting the most traction online. So yeah, that verse happened, and we don't own the beat or nothing, so we never released it commercially. Mm-hmm. But I was like, man, I should find a way to put this out somehow. And so we made our own beat to it, we put a hook on it, we made it a record, and finally, after so many people were like, put it online, put it on SoundCloud, put it somewhere, we found a way so people can have it in their phones and listen to it and enjoy it.
So wait, you're saying you wrote this over a different beat? Do you remember what beat?
I don't.
And it was for when you were gonna go up and get with Sway.
I believe so. I literally don't even remember.
You wanted to be war ready.
It was yeah. Yo, because the thing with those Sway interviews is when they call like a day or two before, and it's like, yo, there's a slot in the morning show. Do you want to come up? And it's like, so you gotta always have something in the clip in the phone.
So I had made a joke, but then it was interrupted by like the apocalypse happening out there with like 10 ambulances. But the joke was like, oh, what, you don't freestyle when you go to Sway, bro? You ain't real. You don't like sometimes, you said sometimes.
Yeah, one of the times I went up there, I played the word game with Sway, which was like, yo, you throw out a word and right now I'll take that word and bring it to life. So I can do that. I kind of feel like that's a lost art form though. Like the act of freestyling.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's alive in like some new school ways too. I know like Future goes in the studio and just kind of like, from what I've heard, is that
Young
man.
Young Thug too, right?
Who?
Young Thug too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean Young Thug. These guys put the joint on, the beat on, and it loops, and they just mumble, freestyle bars, and then their engineers piece it together and make records out of it. So
yeah, Wayne kind of takes like that too. You see a lot of clips of him on socials just going for it. The Swagger Like Ours first is kind of one of the more famous ones of him recording like
he was like in a hotel room and that video clip. We got the video. Can we pull that up?
No. What do y'all think about that though? Because that's something that's like a high point of contention in hip hop. Because hip hop is like so much on like being authentic and like really freestyling. But if you do your Googles, like even in the golden era, mid-90s, a lot of dudes were pulling up with like written joints. You know what I'm saying? Like if you look at the Stretch and Mabito documentary, I think you could even see dudes like straight up
getting that thing on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think at a certain point it just stopped mattering, and I think like around the time of like Rap City The Basement, it was like around then people started catching on because you would see guys come on and they would spit something, and then later you'd hear it on the album. And
or
you'd
their
be
boy
like,
in the back would be doing the ad lib.
yeah, and it's like, how is this? But I think it was, I mean, I think after a while it kind of stopped mattering, because at one point, even around that same time, it was like guys were making their careers, like, you know, guys like Cameron just going in and just, you know, going right off the top. And you knew that there was some guys who could do that and some guys who really couldn't. And you could tell because they'd stumble around for a little bit, of the eyes would be searching. 106 did the Freestyle Fridays, and you just knew somebody would, you know, right off the top. But yeah, it's kind of like, you know, guys don't write their own stuff anymore, and it just, I guess it just stopped mattering.
Yeah, there was a time for sure when it was like, if you got found out that your freestyle battle in particular was written,
It was curtains.
like you were like shamed.
Yeah.
So I remember in high school, I went, it was in Syracuse where I grew up. We went and did a joint at the Palace Theater, and I won that. And I remember I won it because I was there freestyling. And like, you could tell I was freestyling because I was bombing on the dude for what he was wearing at that moment. Mm-hmm. And so it was just like, and the other guy, though he was dope, you could tell it was written.
Yeah.
And so it was just such a higher level of respect for the freestyle thing. Now, you wouldn't dare walk into a battle the way the battle scene has progressed without having like written and memorized that thing.
Yeah, and
so it's just rules kind of have shifted and changed.
It's kind of shifted too, because now when you see it, because battle rapping is actually, it's a thing now. It's kind of like it's like street ball. And
Shout
now
out Saga and all them dudes doing their thing, the Horsemen, all them dudes.
Yeah,
killing.
and now it's more, it ain't really even about like the wittiness of like on the spot drawing lines. It's more so about the theatrics of like delivery and stuff like that. So, you know, art forms change, and that's just one of them. But going back to, because you mentioned something earlier, you said something earlier about the So Far Gone thing. You were familiar with the song before that though, right?
Of course.
Like the Monica joint.
Yeah, I was just reminded of how dope that beat was.
It was funny too when that came out, because at the label, we were freaking like, yo, this is a moment. We gotta like put an ad.
Well, I did mine?
Yeah. You probably, I don't even know if you knew that, but we were like on the back end, like boosting that thing. Like,
oh, really?
Oh, we gotta like get some reactions. We gotta,
What do you mean boosting it?
Like just really trying to figure out, I think maybe that was around the time where Instagram ads and like putting money behind posts was kind of becoming a thing. Like people didn't always do that. And I think when you dropped that, it was in between releases, maybe right after Neverland 2, or no, right after Neverland and then right before Uncomfortable. So we were just like, yo, we got to get this going, retweeting, creating conversation around it, and just trying to do our part to kind of,
I didn't even know that.
Keep it going. Yeah, man.
That's
it was
crazy.
That was kind of like, it's funny too, because like looking back on it now, having done this for 4 years, that was like right at the time where music marketing was becoming very responsive. So it was like, and you were kind of, and that's the funny thing about you, is like you really pushed us forward in that sense, because you were always doing something random that we just couldn't, like we had to react to it, right? Like you come into work one day and you probably got your day planned out, and then Andy's going viral on social media, and now you got to figure this out. Like, and you were constantly doing that at that time. And it felt like, this is so frustrating, but now it's kind of like it's the status quo. Like that's just what it is, and people try to create that. But that's funny looking back on that now.
You know what's crazy is I remember we were in Portland working on music. At the time, we were working on Shame and some other stuff like that when that was happening. And that like there was a whole contest. I think Hot 97 did or something, and my verse was one of the top 3 that like. They
wanted to tweeted that joint, remember?
Yeah, no, she was,
yeah.
and Monica was reposting them too. And yours
and she commented on mine. She was like, "You did your thing, boo."
And the funny, another angle or another dynamic to that was when you started popping, it was like while people were coming out of the woodworks, like, yeah, this is my boy Andy Mineo, like, and it was like, yo, where you be at when we trying to promote an album or something? So I think that's another like aspect of like going viral or like people wanting to attach themselves to a moment, because we found out you had a lot of supporters when that happened.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's also, I think, why there's been some success for other guys like Toby, Nwigwe, and some of these guys. Like, when you're just snapping, like, on socials, it's different than dropping a bop, like a song.
yeah.
I feel like social media is really good for people, like, executing their raw talent. Mm-hmm. Like, there's that one girl, I forgot what her name is.
Nah,
She got, like, the headband on, and she...
with the bandana cutout joint.
I forgot what she was, but she just like rapping in front of the camera and just got like a million followers. Cause that stuff goes viral really quick.
Yeah.
I think even faster than songs. Songs are more like placement and vibe. Social media, like there's that one kid who went, he's an older gentleman, beatboxing, right?
Oh,
it's like
yeah,
that
with
stuff
the
just
volume joint.
Yeah, it just works really good for social. So
It's like my man Lil Nas X with the Red Dead joint, the freaking Old Town Road, with the video game joint. You ever seen it?
Yeah.
And what's happening too is cats are getting deals off that now.
Yep.
Like labels will see these dudes pop off, and then it becomes a situation of, oh, we got to get this cat a deal.
Going back to some of the like mid '90s hip hop stuff, because I think there was there was something more I wanted to talk about with regards to the freestyles, because I feel like people shame that so much. And my thing is, being in the industry, I'm like, yo, if you don't have that talent, like, you're wildin'. Maybe there's like some pride in there that you just want to go in there and freestyle just to freestyle.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it doesn't make sense.
You feel like if people shame what the
People shame somebody that's like you remember what they did to Drake when he was on his phone?
Oh, yeah.
Like on the BlackBerry or whatever?
yep.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm telling you, you listen to so many like classic freestyles from back in the day, and they were clearly written, yo.
Yeah.
But people were just like, yo, like.
Well, I think it was because back then it just wasn't it wasn't as common knowledge. So one of the more famous, hip hop moments, probably, one of the earliest and my favorite ones, is you got Big Smalls like out on the corner with the mic corded into the beatbox, and he's just ripping from whatever. And I think these mythical moments kind of like became this overarching.
Cause some people
did that.
Some people really
did that.
can freestyle though.
Yeah.
Like Juice,
and
JUIs.
it's like uncanny. You're like, yo,
Like
how
Will
are you
Smith.
just coming off the head right now?
Like Will Smith. People don't know that, but he's one of those. And it was like you kind of had to be able to do that to be a rapper. Like that was your way of. There was no getting in
Right.
if you couldn't do that.
That's, man, I don't know. Are you saying you hold on to that, like, to this day, like, where you'd be like, yo, if you rap, you gotta be a freestyle?
I always
Nah,
thought these hip hop hardliners and like gatekeepers, and I mean, I think it's a good segue into an even bigger conversation, which is something that really annoys me. And now, mind you, my favorite rapper of all time is like Nas. I love AZ. Like grew up a Tribe Called Quest fan.
Wait a
Wu-Tang, Mobb
second.
Deep.
I don't think many people. You dropping these names and you're being very exclusive. Who is AZ? And I don't know. I
Do
know.
your Google.
I know. But
Do your
I'm think-
Googles
I mean,
and kiss the ring. Come on.
Okay.
Say it.
All right. If we're gonna be like that.
No. I'm just saying, like, look these people up. Look up these names. But I'm just trying to tell you, like, I grew up in the East Coast,
Jersey.
like, very much like golden era hip hop fan. Why you like, yo, this man laughing when you said Jersey.
Jay-Z, baby.
Yo, what,
What's
bro,
up
what?
with that?
What? Yo, I'm gonna
Garden
put this
City.
kid on blast
Garden
on the
City,
internet.
what up?
Get them Jersey goons after this kid. Yo, real talk though, man. Like, I am somebody, like, that's my favorite era of hip hop. But I really get annoyed, like, when people from that era want to try to, like, shame the new generation of rappers that are just on a different tip. That it's more about, like, feel and about being, like, on a wave or whatever. And I'm just like, yo, it's just a different way of expressing. I keep looking at Caleb because Caleb was like, yeah, dog, that's what I'm talking about. It's just, like, so whack to me, like, people that want to be, like, gatekeepers and want to be, like, hip-hop hardliners. And don't want to respect the different expressions of hip hop. Because it's so multifaceted. And when you look at the beginning of hip hop, like everybody forgets, yo. Everybody wants to be like, nah, hip hop started and it was hardcore. Like, bro, hip hop started like over disco beats, bro.
Yep.
And like it was all about partying and having fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't until probably like the message that it was like, oh snap. And you know what? They made fun of I'm talking about like, don't, cause I'm close to the edge. Like they were making fun of them for like, wow, so depressing, so dark. Like y'all whack, y'all ain't real hip hop. Real hip hop is about getting the party started and having fun. I don't have that talent, but I'm gonna go on and spit something dope and entertain y'all. At the end of the day, it's entertainment.
Didn't Lil Yachty and these guys get like roasted, like on Hot 97? He came up there and it was like, yo, freestyle, and he couldn't do that, and it, you know. There was like some of those guys are seeing what these younger cats are doing as like a lesser form of hip hop as they knew it.
Yeah.
And I think I can understand that. Like if you knew hip hop to be one thing, then the technicality and the things behind what you describe as that, I can understand you being like, nah, that's not it for me.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening is like the spirit of hip hop, which is like creativity, self-expression, you know what I'm saying, your world and what you understand about it being expressed authentically.
Yeah.
Like I think that's still alive to a degree.
Yeah. And there's that the other piece I would add to that about what hip hop started being like the voice of the powerless or like the marginalized, right? And that whole thing. And I think that's what people get upset about sometimes too, is that aspect is not it isn't brought to the forefront as much anymore because some of the more popular acts.
You mean like the technical stuff?
Well,
the technical
ability as well, but also like being a voice for, you know, hip hop being a voice for like what's going on in like underprivileged and underserved communities.
So like having depth and substance and like a profound message.
Yeah. And I think to the other side of that, so far we've been talking about kind of like gatekeepers being all like hating on young people. But I think it happens the other way too, where people who
don't
are
respect.
Yeah, people who
true.
are newer to hip hop don't respect. Like I remember, I think I was sitting with a kid who's an artist, and he does very much contemporary, you know, the contemporary style or the new style, whatever you want to call it. And I'm working with him on his stuff, and I was like, yo, so, you know, talk to me about your musical influences. And he was like, man, you know, I just don't like them rappers who be all deep, man, who be rapping too much, this and that. He's like 20 years old. And I was thinking, okay, maybe he's talking about like Kendrick, you know. And I was like, so, yo, who are you talking about? And he was like, Big Sean. And I was like, what?
Big Sean's great though.
And then you got these people who are, you know, you got kids who, I think, and it was happening where people were like dissing Jay-Z and stuff like that, like saying that's boring or like kind of, and it's like, man, okay, I get if you didn't really catch that but to come in and kind of have that energy, to me, that's a little, I think.
But you can't expect 20-year-old kids to have any form of respect. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you should. That depends on how you're raised. It's not how my mama raised me.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. But I will say this. I said things at 20 years old that I feel like a moron about, you know, looking back on.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad that you brought it up because it's something I was going to say, that there's a sweet spot where you respect a different expression and a newer expression, while at the same time holding respect for past expressions and like history.
Yeah.
And there was something that I really loved, and it was when Migos were on The Breakfast Club, and they were asking them, I think, if they knew about Wu-Tang or something like that, and they were like, of course, man, you got to know your history, this and that. And I thought that was really dope, because Migos being some, artists that are of a different expression, that are influential now, to say that like, yo, you gotta do your history. I think that's true. I think the good thing about like a gatekeeper and a hardliner is the respect and encouragement of learning your history and then having respect. Because guess what, bro? everything before you opened doors for you.
Yeah.
Everything before you, like, opened up paths for you. Like, think about how much people had to suffer. How many people didn't get to see the fruits of the genre.
Yeah.
And yet were instrumental in even propping it up as an
Laying that
industry.
ground.
And now you just roll here and like you're able to benefit from all the work that everyone did before. You're like, yo, show some respect, man.
Yeah,
and even
that,
if you're not into it, that's fine.
And that could be a little inaccessible for people as noble as what you said. I think that can be inaccessible for some people. But I think another
inaccessible how?
You got the internet, dog. What you mean?
No. I mean the thought and the feeling of, yo, these people laid the groundwork, whatever. I think sometimes, kind of to what you were saying, when you're younger, just that thought, history. You kind of had to go through some things to appreciate history as you unless you were just raised some type of way. You know what I'm saying? Because
I think how you raised has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, but that's why you need like the OG, like the older, like for example, now I'll consider myself like someone that can go up to someone like RG, right? And be like, oh, actually it happened on the tour where someone was like, yo, I don't know about Nas, this and that. That dude puts me to sleep. Like somebody said that. I ain't gonna say who.
Wow.
And
that's a lot.
I was like, oh.
That's a lot.
I'm like, yo, that's crazy. No, because I gotta respect it because it's subjective.
It's subjective. And that's subjective. It's understandable.
But I was like, yo, I'm gonna put together a playlist for you. You know, you might not like everything. Like, I don't like everything. Like, there's legends in the game that do not connect with me. Their music doesn't connect with me.
Like who? Like who?
Nah.
Talk about it.
What?
This guy's trying to ruin you first day.
No, because that's not what this is about.
Okay, all right.
That's not what this is about. But there's people that I don't connect with their music as much, and yet I still respect what they contributed to the game. And at the end of the day, there's so much subjective aspects to it that if somebody's like, yo, I don't like this, yo, there's people out there that don't like Jay. And I think Jay is like the greatest. There is. There's people out there that don't like Jay. That's a fact of life. But check this out.
It's an alternative fact.
Putting together a playlist, and guess what? He might be like, yo, that record actually is dope. Yeah. You know, that might be the only one I like. But it's more like understanding, yo, let me show you why you gotta respect Nas, because let me give you some of the historical context. And now that dude can walk away and be like, yo, you know what? One song or two might connect with me, but I got mad respect for that dude.
Yeah, well, what I was gonna say about, you know, another way to look at it that might help people who don't have, who can't access, you know, older forms, versions of hip hop is it's great source material, right? So, you know, I was hanging out with Ace, and I kept saying something about, yo, such and such has to do a statement record, and it felt so, it was very ambiguous. And then I was like, okay, let me put on a song for you to kind of show you.
What you meant by that?
Yeah, and we went all the way back to like Rakim when he's like, when I be on the mic. And I'm like, in this song, you have this guy who's like, picture a room full of people. And this is what a rapper essentially is. And I feel like you have to do this as a rapper at some point, where you step into the room and you say, here's my name, here's what I'm about, and here's why you need to pay attention to me. Everybody who's kind of has some sticking power has sort of done that at one point in time. You got that with, like I said, you got that with Rakim on When I Be on the Mic. You got that with guys like Jay. I'm from Marcy. You know, cough up a lung where I'm from. Marcy, son, ain't nothing. You know, everybody sort of does that. You establish your calling card. And I think with younger, so sometimes when you talk about these things, like it helps to show that to younger artists and be like, yo, this is why this person has lasted, and this is a trademark. You know, another one is you got to talk about where you're from. So let's go through and look at the greats and how they've told the rest of the world about where they're from. And you do that in your own way, but you know, so that's another angle.
Well, I think in general too, like just as a human, I think it's smart for whatever arena you step into to just understand the history of it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I think it's even like as an American citizen to understand.
This man about to get deep.
Nah, for real though. Like if you live in America, you should probably understand the arc of America. You know what I'm saying? To know where you live and the time you live in and why the past informs the present, like all that stuff. I think it's like a social responsibility. Same way, I think it's like a responsibility if you're in hip hop, you love hip hop, to do a little bit of the past, present, future work as well. Think about all those things, especially if you want to make it your profession, just so you don't look like a clown. You know what I'm saying? If you get brought into the larger community of hip hop. Now, I'm not saying it's like a mandate. I think it's just wise.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and then here's the other thing too. There's a really weird thing about music post-dated. What I mean by that is like when you heard a song for the first time, like we've had this happen. You said, yo, when I heard that song, it was the most amazing song ever for me. We talked about this last night at R. Thomas. Shout out R. Thomas, Crazy Wings. They open late, ATL.
They better cut that check.
Salmon.
Is that sponsorship
R.
coming in?
Thomas, send your boys some wings.
What?
So
Send that email.
send the email. We need those. We need them catered. Mañana. Okay. But at that time, that song might have been everything for you. Then you listen to it 10, 15 years later, you're like, I don't understand what the big deal was. There's something about it being new, the hype around it, the stage of life that you were in. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I'll pull up a record and I'll play it for like a young cat and I'll be like, yo, look at this 93 record. And I'm like, they will never have the experience 25 years later that I had then.
No doubt.
You know, and it's hard to emotionally make somebody feel that time, that attachment. And so I get it. I think it's just gonna keep happening. You know, every generation says about the generation after it, like they don't understand. This was really the good stuff. And that's just always gonna happen, I feel like. So we gotta find some sort of sweet spot in there.
But why did they call the 90s the golden era? Like, it's... But I seriously want to know. Like, I don't know.
Well, I think
because
you
this is
had
the
a lot
thing.
of-
He's right.
You had a lot
Everybody's
of-
always like, yo, our time. But
You had
there
a lot
really
of-
are special times in music, though.
You had a lot of significant things happen in the 90s, right? So 1997, you know, when people start talking about when did hip hop die, it was also kind of the same time it went mainstream. And I would argue that was 97 with Diddy and the Notorious B.I.G. and like the
This guy's all about burning bridges today.
the money
Diddy's
raps.
goons will find you.
No. Questlove.
So
No, this is
the
a quote.
demise
I
of
don't-
hip hop
I
is
don't-
attributed to Diddy.
No, I don't.
Is that what you're
Awful way
saying?
to
No,
start.
that's not my quote. If you read Questlove,
Get this guy off
Yo,
the podcast.
I got this guy's back against the
No,
wall.
dude,
son.
no. Nah, you just talking louder. If you read Questlove actually said this. Questlove is the one who cites this.
Now you got Questlove on your head.
It's in his book.
Now you're going to throw Questlove
It's
under
in
the
his
bus.
book.
Don't
I
get
did
it
my
twisted.
studies.
Quest could throw.
But the reason that people say that is because that was around the first time that like big money raps started happening. And so you got all the way up till then was when that's when all of the jazz samples were happening in hip hop. That's when there were just a lot of firsts and a lot of people's raw introductions into and a lot of the people who started around then were the ones who lasted. You had Busta Rhymes coming out of Native Tongues and that whole movement, Tribe Called Quest. I mean, you just had a lot happening in the 90s for the first time.
That's true. You had a lot of innovation happening,
Yeah.
and a plethora of people and individual sounds happening. Because I think we weren't globalized yet.
Nah.
Like, I remember there was a point in time when you would go to like Memphis, right? If I'm in New York City and we're wearing this outfit, and then you go to Memphis and they're on something totally different. Like they on Feli down there, and New York was on like whatever
Timberland,
it was.
Tommy Hilfiger.
Tommy Hill, North Face. And everything was regional. So there was regional sounds, there was regional apparel. Now, if Kanye West wears something, 30 seconds later you see it on Instagram. Some
It's
kid in
running up.
Ohio is wearing the exact same thing. You know what I'm saying? Or something happening in Japan immediately becomes a trend here in the States instantly. There's no room for like miniature culture the way that there was. So I think that attributed to a lot of the flavors, a lot of the sounds. Like, yo, up there they're doing that. In California, they had their whole own sound, which was incredible.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of innovation happening. Technology was also happening. You know, now though, if you listen to hip hop, you're like, the last 10 years have sounded like the South.
Yeah.
That's it.
20, maybe.
The maybe
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
That's kind of stopped with, and that's
So you have a problem with the South?
I don't. I love the South, and
Oh,
I use a
just
lot of
wanna
that
make sure.
influence in my music. But it's also because I'm around the culture. We're in
Yeah.
Atlanta. I'm here.
I'm with you, bro.
But
You
I
know
think
what I'm
that says something too about the responsibility of people who've kind of come before. As much as the responsibility is to go back and understand the history, I think one of the ways that we can kind of like break the divide is for people to just stay plugged in. Because you don't have to be, just because you were from a previous generation, you don't necessarily have to be isolated, so long as you can
That's good.
stay in and stay
good,
connected.
bro.
Because there are people who do that. Like you think about folks like Pharrell. This man finds a way to stay. I mean, a Pharrell.
Talking about the GOAT.
Everybody kiss the ring.
He just finds a way to
Yeah.
be a part of like whatever is happening, and I think it reflects a little bit about who he is as a person, you know. And I think we can all learn something from that. To, you know, like J. Cole on his Middle Child record, a lot of people had, you know, some not so positive things to say about that record, but I think that was a very special moment in hip hop because he was acknowledged. He really took a step of humility, unlike anything that we've seen in a long time, to say, yo, one, for the first time somebody says there can be two greats at once, so I can do my thing and you can do yours. Then the other thing that he goes on to say is, yo, I'm gonna talk about, you know, Kodak Black, who is probably on a different spectrum from me in hip hop, but I see him, I understand him, and I understand some things that are going on around him. So, you know, although I probably never do a song with him or we're different, yo, respect to that, you know? So I think we can learn from
Yeah, I
those
think
types
at
of
the
Man,
end of the
Burgos,
day-
man.
Huh?
Kodak got some joints. It's a blessing.
Oh yeah,
He's
no,
crazy.
he
So-
goes.
He also said something on that record I really like. He said, I'm the OG and the young one all at once.
He
Like,
said, I'm little bro and big bro all at once.
I'm little bro and big bro all at once.
Why? Because he's a guy, he's what we're talking about right now. He's a guy that did his Googles, knows his history, and has respect for what's happening now.
Yeah, but he was almost, and I'd love to hear y'all's take on this because he had another moment with 1985 on the KOD record where he calls out, you know, I don't know if Pump or Peep felt like it was him, and they started beefing. And it was people were starting to react like, oh, Cole's washed. Look at him, he's that guy that's like saying this or that about the young guys. So there was a minute.
Was he though?
What, saying this or that about the young guys?
Was he saying that the current generation is corny?
Well, no, I think he was calling out something specific about the current generation, because he was like, yo, get your money, don't be a trend jacker, don't be like super, super caught up in the current, because you're not gonna have longevity, and you know, 20 years later, you're gonna be on Love and Hip Hop. And in the moment, people got really in their bag about that and were like, yo, he's washed, why would he do that? There's no coming back. But
here's another thing. If you criticize anything outside of your thing, people are like, they immediately hate you.
yeah.
Well,
They're like, you're washed.
but you know why? I mean, criticism only arises defensiveness and resentment.
And that's what a
It's
lot of
not
people-
a way to go about anything.
I think a lot of people, but
unconstructive
to the
criticism.
question you asked, why is he little bro and big bro all at once, was because he did that, and then he followed up with, no, let's sit down and talk about this, and I want to get you to
Yeah, the record
understand
he's got with 21 Savage is hard.
where I'm really coming from. And
Well, he's big bro to the younger generation, but he's little bro to Jay-Z and Nas and these guys that he grew up listening to and loving. And also what's happening is hip hop is aging.
Which is beautiful.
Which is beautiful. Like
Yeah.
for the first time, we're seeing fathers, like we're seeing grandfathers, we're seeing like,
And here's
is
the thing.
crazy.
And we've seen fathers, right? But they weren't actually like being fathers publicly, or like we've had husbands. I think I remember the first time I realized that T.I. was married. I was like, wait, what? Because that's not matching up with.
yep.
And
But
then
so many of these guys hide the fact that they're married, take off their wedding rings.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because they want to make sure their sex appeal, the different things that are selling them records are still working. Because it wasn't accepted in hip hop for so long. So, I mean, yeah, with the aging of hip hop, you're getting a bunch of new things. You don't get 444 without Jay-Z being an older man who's learned things. And like, I honestly think that wisdom, all that stuff needs to happen the way it's happening. He shouldn't be trying to keep up with Kodak Black.
No.
You know what I'm saying? He should be doing his thing. And I think what's really beautiful now is like the space is opening up where there's room for everybody. Now that you have 40, 50, 60-year-old hip hop fans.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As much as you have 13, 12-year-old hip hop fans and the spectrum just widening. I think if people can figure out how to respect each of those spaces all the way around, that's going to be great. Because here's the crazy thing. I heard Lil Uzi say this. He was like, oh, y'all are old. Once you're 25, you're old. He says something crazy like that. You remember this?
Yeah.
Lil Uzi said, I think if you turn 30,
He said, well, yeah, once you get there, you're washed. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm like, yo, the crazy part is, bro, is 30's going to creep up on you like this. And you're going to wish that you never shot yourself in the foot. You know what I'm saying? When you get there to be like, I declared myself washed. And the crazy part is it's coming for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Age is
you're
coming
lucky.
if you're lucky.
But that kind of going back to where we started the conversation about like what hip hop was and why people get so tight about it. I think what you just said though is something that's very native to hip hop, which is originally, and I think it still is, a way for information to be passed down and a way for culture to be passed down. Because even the very act of a freestyle, we call it a cipher, which even that word has a history, which means people literally standing in a circle sharing wisdom. That's literally what that word cipher means, and you know what the culture of hip hop started as. So in that sense, it is nice to see that kind of come full circle, because it's kind of returning back to what it is in this holistic way, where guys like Jay can say, hey, make sure you own your masters. Or guys like, you know, Cole can say like, tour, that's where the money is. You know what I mean? On wax and things like that.
I think ultimately what we're talking about is the immense value in knowing your history, because not only does it give you context, okay, and just knowledge, analytical information, but I think it's really valuable in studying history and stealing and pulling. I mean, I always say this, the best creatives are just great curators.
Yeah.
It's people that are pulling from a whole bunch of different sources and mixing them in such a way that people are fooled into thinking that they're original. You know what I'm saying? When really it's just they pulled from so many different places and stewed it up in a way that it's like a fresh expression. So I think like people don't know that the Juice WRLD record that really popped off for him was like Nas used that like in 96. And then that was a Sting record from like the early 90s or late 80s. I don't even remember. But
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like there's just a value, and this is the problem. The problem is that people want to force feed people history and respect.
And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier when I said that history from that perspective can be inaccessible, because instantly like younger people or people who are new to the culture kind of thumb their nose up at it because it brings on defensiveness. But I think if we could present it in such a way, you know, of like, yo, there's some inspiration. Like Meek Mill had the big record.
Yeah, the What's Beef joint.
And it's What's Beef, and people didn't even know, but you know, or I think Lecrae with Nothing being the I Got 5 on it, you know, thing. Or Andy, you know, this is crazy. When I was an intern, I was like, you played the Ghost from Uncomfortable. But like this was probably like a year before it came out, and you had that line, a thug changes and love changes and best friends become strangers. And I lost it. I don't even know if you remember this. It was like me, you, Ben, and I think like Katie or something like that in the studio. And when I heard that line, I lost it. And I expected the rest of the room to be with me on that. And it was like, oh, because that was like the Nas. You know, that not and that was such a line that was so.
Come on,
that was so
Nas reference.
Like
a Nas reference that a lot of people missed.
Yeah,
and probably won't catch until they do. They genius.
But the beautiful thing about what you did there was like you went back and you grabbed vulnerability in a way that you didn't need to recreate the real, and you put it in a context that now somebody else who don't even know Nas could hear you say that, and now they attach that same feeling that I had when Nas first said it to you now. And I think with artists knowing that power, like those power to reach back and get these things.
It's just mad beneficial, like across the board. And I think if it was expressed like that, to your point, if it was expressed like that, then it's like, yo, I experienced this in my marriage, son. Like if my wife comes at me the wrong way, and this is a sign of my brokenness. If she comes at me the wrong way, I double don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And even if she's
mean
right,
criticism, like
and,
criticizing.
No. If she's asking for something, and I'm like, oh, you're right. But if she came at me the wrong way, I'm like, but now I really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what happens with these young artists. That is like, yo, you should know your history and this and that. Is like, yo, you right. But I really don't want to look into it now because of the way you're approaching me. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the thing that I'm against. So to be clear, I'm against people trying to shove it down the throat, and then I'm against people that have zero respect for it. And they're like, yo, man, all that stuff is old. Y'all washed. It's like, I don't agree with that. And then like, yo, you young kids, yo, you need to know this. You need to do all that. Yeah, like,
you ain't
people
real.
That want to make it like,
you ain't hip hop.
Yeah, people that want to make it a commandment and like stuff like that. I think that's super corny. I think it's somewhere in the middle where you have like, you study because it's wild beneficial on many levels for you, you know, and then also like it's art, man. Like you push for different expressions and then you respect that. And so at the end of the day, the word we're talking about is respect. At the end of the day is what we're talking about.
100.
Something else I want to ask you guys, because we touched on the freestyle thing, and I believe, yo, man, if you're not good at freestyling, don't freestyle, bro. No. Or work on it. But until then, if you want to come through with a written, spit a written, bro, like, just show us your skills, whether off the head or through the pen. Just show us your skills. At the end of the day, it's entertainment, man. Y'all need to chill. But I respect both.
Yeah.
Like,
I got a couple stories.
I respect freestyling people that freestyle at the top of the dome.
I got two things to say. One, on that freestyle tip, I remember this happened. And I hope these guys don't get mad at me bringing this up, but if they do, we'll just edit it. Oh, yeah, I'm dropping names.
Why? Don't say names.
All right. So
if it's not necessary.
I went to go do a cipher.
Yo, every time he does that, I brace myself. He's like, yo,
but
somebody might, you know, I don't
it ain't live TV. We can edit it if it's crazy. So I remember I ran up to Hot 97 with my man Money Nels, who was helping promote me at the time, and Partisan Fontaine. Mm-hmm. I know Party.
Yeah. Really
He's
dope.
popping right now. He's killing it.
Really dope.
We had all just done like South by Southwest, sleeping in like an Airbnb, right?
Oh, that was after that?
Yep. And we went to do this Hot 97 thing, and he was like, yo, they're gonna do this backroom freestyle type thing. Just be ready to go. So I show up, I go in there, I rap, I do my thing, and Party's like, yo, I don't really got nothing written for this. Like, that's not really my BPM. You know, he just was like, I'm not really ready to go in there and kick a cipher like that. And so I remember Nels just being like, yo, bro, like, you gotta be ready for this. It's an opportunity for you. And he's like, but it's not my thing. Not that he couldn't. He was just like,
yeah. Because he's nice.
Because lo and behold, a couple years later, he just had a #1 record at Urban. The joint went platinum, backing it up. And then he wrote on all those Cardi B records. So it just goes to show again that he's like, listen, I don't gotta be the cipher guy for me to win. I'm leaning into what my things are, and shout out Party. You know what I'm saying? So
stop shaming people for that, yo.
And two, here's another reason why I think it's important that people do your Googles and understand music in a broader scale, because if you're only listening and pulling inspiration from the same pot that you're trying to put back into, the only thing you can do is be late. So let me give you an example. If all you listen to is Migos.
That's a bar.
No, I'm serious.
That's a bar.
Think about this. If all you do is listen to Migos and Migos production and so on and so on, and you want to make music, all you're going to be doing is trying to make the same thing that they've already made. So by the time you contribute something, people get a chance to hear it, it's old. what the geniuses that I have always loved in music, like the Pharrells, the Kanye West, these guys, they always pull their inspiration from outside of hip hop. And when they find something dope, they bring it back into hip hop, and that's why it's something refreshing and innovative.
Yeah.
You look at Pharrell and you're like, yo, my man's style is crazy because he's not looking at American fashion. He's in Japan.
Yeah.
Then when he brings it back here, we're like, yo. Same thing with Kanye. You listen to all these records from Kanye, and it's like, yo, diamonds are forever. Like you brought Sierra Leone. You went way over here outside of hip hop, found the beauty in something else, and then brought it back in.
And isn't that?
But when people try to pull straight from hip hop and put it right back in, bro, the pool is too small. You get sniffed out, and then you're going, I don't want no diet version of something else.
Guys, hip hop by definition
is that. That's what it's like. It's a turntable.
But to your point of why it's beneficial,
that's
like,
what I'm saying.
broaden
like,
your horizons.
Hip hop by
Listen to a
definition is
playlist.
When he was bringing up in the '90s, how much they were pulling from jazz, and then in the West Coast, how they were pulling from funk. Like, what are we talking about over here? Like, it's a direct result of
curation and broadening your scope.
Which
and a lot of these people only heard those records because their parents were playing them.
Yeah,
that was their access.
We did, and that's the interesting thing too, because that was a early criticism of hip hop, where you had disco. They were really at odds with hip hop because they were saying we weren't creating anything original because we didn't have anything.
Y'all just talking over our beats.
Because they would find, that's literally what they say. Where's the talent? You're talking over my masterpiece. And people stopped showing up to disco clubs in the 70s, and it started to kind of slide down. Michael Jackson killed disco with his music and things like that. The turntable was not meant to be an instrument. It was supposed to be a way that music was played, and then.
But that's innovation.
And the thing about this is, I found this out. There's one song that probably most '90s hip hop was made from. You know the song? Nautilus.
Impeach the President, drum loop.
Well, Nautilus is the one. It's a jazz record. Go back and listen to it, and it's so crazy how producers took so many different points and pieces of this one song that And so that's the heritage of hip hop, taking from outside, bringing it in, repurposing.
And you can't do that without respecting and knowing history, musical history. Well, we're speaking specifically about like newer rappers having respect and a desire to learn hip hop history. But I would even encourage them to just learn music history, period.
Yeah.
Like punk and classic rock and jazz and like all these different things are just gonna make you a better artist.
And it gives you such
you
you such an advantage, and it really doesn't have to go that far. Like, I think some of the things, so Travis Scott, his dad was actually in a band and really, lived that life. But some of the things that show up in his art and in his music, you really don't have to be terribly discerning to like get those things, but just the simple act of him bringing things in that are from, it's given him a pretty significant leg up. Even with Kanye, if you have just a surface level relationship with soul music, you'll be able to very quickly identify some of the samples and where he's pulling things from. It gives you such a leg up.
That's hip hop though, man. If you think about early hip hop was like heavily leaning on disco. Then it was heavily leaning on rock. Like the Beastie Boys, early Def Jam era. Then it was heavily leaning on jazz. Then it was heavily leaning on soul. It's like, now it's just obviously like a cluster of electronic. Kanye did a lot of electronic stuff, and it's just a cluster of so much stuff. But I think that's just like wildly valuable, man. And I think respect, like we said, is the thing we're talking about. One last thing I want to get your opinion on that's also like in high contention is people writing their own raps. Like, there's people that are like, yo, if you don't write your own raps, like, you're a fraud. I want to know how y'all stand on that.
Is that still a thing? Do people still say that?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that still say that.
Because I know I had my moment with that. It was at a Reach Records executive meeting. Shout out to Lecrae, because he totally like snatched the moment for me. Like, he just broke it to me real,
Okay, break it down.
Well, it was when the whole Drake thing came out, and I was pretty upset because my favorite rapper is Jay-Z, and I just love that whole. Back in high school I used to write raps and things like that, so I know what that process is like, and I appreciate it so much. That when it came out, I was like, oh, I was on that. I was like, Drake's a fake. Obviously, I hadn't been working in music very long. And he was just like, oh yeah, well, welcome to the music. And he just started listing off and I was like,
oh yeah, Lecrae will ruin your
oh yeah, he is like the
fantasy world. He loves to shatter your castle, your castle.
Oh yeah, Lecrae.
Boy.
But he's
I'm
great,
right?
He's great at that, right?
You thought that guy was
oh yeah, he's great. It's great because it helps you grow. But I think when I didn't know what it. I didn't know what it meant to A&R a record. I didn't know that. I thought everybody was like writing their raps. And
so you always thought that like Diddy and Dre wrote their raps, or you knew they didn't, but you were like, oh, it's okay. They're like,
no. I always thought, because again, it was a respect thing. Because
you always thought they wrote everything. Always thought Diddy and Dre.
Everybody, yeah. But there was one moment though. There was one moment where Diddy was like, "Don't worry if I write rhymes, I write checks." That just, I love that line. I knew it as a 10-year-old, but it kind of missed me. But then I think being more behind the scenes and being part of the music industry, I really did kind of grow.
Did you just do that on Photoshop? I'm sorry. That's incredible.
That's beautiful.
He's like, wrap it up.
No, but that was
just
great.
Created a 5 minutes late, 5 minutes left graph. That's dope though.
I love it. Yeah.
But I'll be quick. But once I kind of saw what it takes to A&R a song and how intricate that process is, once I found out what a songwriter is and what a reference track is and all of that, I was like, yo, that's a talent all in itself to be able to curate that. And you still got to deliver it, because Quentin Miller delivering some of these records for Drake, it's not going to go over the same. Cardi B is a talent. The way that she delivers on the mic, that's a talent, and you got to respect that.
It is. And
But Jay writes all his raps. He's not a biter. He's a writer for himself and others. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, bro. I think creating a community is fantastic. And really, the only thing that could stop you from doing that is ego at the end of the day, man. And anything that's like an ego thing, like just knock it off. Like it's nonsense. You know what I mean? I think us getting together, which I believe that's how Kanye creates a lot of his records. And like you can hear when Pusha first came into the good music camp, you can hear those Kanye bars that are like Pusha's bars. Like, let's just call it for what it is. But this is my thing. Kanye's quarterbacking, my brother.
Yeah. And don't front. And don't front about it. Just don't front. That's the only thing. Just don't front like that's what you do if it's not.
Yeah, but this is the thing, like, it's known that Cube was writing for Eazy-E.
Yeah.
So this is like, let's take it way back. This has been happening, bruh. Mm-hmm. Look, you got writers, you got performers, and then you got blends of writers, performers, man. And you gotta respect each one. And I think that's another thing that's like kind of like immature, egocentric, and like foolish. Yeah. When people want to try to like demonize and shame people for not writing their raps.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, bro, and especially let me talk on the Drake situation specifically, bro. Like, yo, sometimes you hit a certain level where, bro, you're not out here like pen and padding it. No. Like you're like on another level where like your time is consumed by so much stuff because now you're like a brand type numbers. Yep. That it's fine, bro. But you know how competitive the music business is, bro? Yeah. For you to be like, nah, yo, I'm the well. And when I run dry with ideas, the shit, this train is coming on full stop because, ego-wise, I can't take it. Like, come on, man, that's a joke.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people out there, you know what I mean?
People don't know how much time goes into being an artist. You're doing interviews, you're doing shows, you're flying around the world. You know what I'm saying?
It's okay.
It's okay to have other people help contribute. Mm-hmm. But what I think you need to do is you need to separate artists.
Yeah.
Like you need to separate writers, you need to separate lyricists, and then have their own categories. Some of the people that we consider the greatest artists of all time never wrote their lyrics.
Yeah.
But They were able to dance their butt off. They looked
They
incredible.
sounded great. Their delivery,
you know what I'm saying?
freaking great.
And so the
that's the
music
thing.
industry is comprised of all those different pieces working together, usually funneled around a single artist or collective. And you know, the only thing I don't like about the Drake situation, and shout out him, I think he's one of like the greatest ever, was it was the fact that he lied about it on the record.
Yeah.
Is where he said, I don't need nobody, I write everything myself, on the same album that was happening. And that's where it's like, you've cornered yourself in a way that you wanted people to have this appearance while you were lying.
Yeah.
And that's where I was
That's
like,
what people maybe
that's
felt
what
some
people
type
was
of way
upset
about.
about.
And the beautiful thing now that people are understanding that, more people get shine. So writers,
Right.
producers,
man.
it's opening up that
To our benefit, to everyone's benefit, more people get opportunities. We'll close with this, man. There's obviously the 90s were an era where technical ability was the commercial, like that was like the commercial draw in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like that was a big part. Like if you look back at the Busta Rhymes videos from the 90s that were big hits, like you were like, wow, you know, it was like really, like they're really rapping, like flavor in your ear, 1, 2, 3, 4, like, or 4, 3, 2, 1, check me out. Damn, playing myself out here.
Can I kick it?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like that was what I think that's what people feel nostalgic about and like want to come back. But fortunately, there's artists like Kendrick, there's artists like Cole. Yo, there's artists like Andy that they do wavy stuff, you know, fun records, pop records, records that are all about feel, and then they do stuff that's like really lyrical, like this So Far Gone joint that he did. And this is what's cool. Obviously, people still dig stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you know, Logic just did this whole thing right now on Instagram where he was just doing like these really technical, like boom bappy stuff, and like people were interacting with it well. And then obviously Kendrick is like wild, like technical. I just think it's super dope that there are people now that have respect for the past, respect for the present, hope for the future, and then can blend. Their art is a result of that.
Yeah.
And so you'll have technical, like this dude has a record with Fonte. What are we talking about?
No, that's real.
You know what I'm saying?
And
Like
for those that know, that's special.
And
Again, it was
and-
another one of those moments.
Yeah, and even
when
if you
the
wanna talk
tracks
about-
came in, I lost it. But
Fonte,
you know,
man, Kiss the Ring.
Some
Kiss the
were
Ring.
like, some were
Shout
like,
out, bro.
I was like, yo, he's got a record with Fonte, and some were like,
Who that?
you know,
Well, this is the thing. So Far Gone challenge is out now. We had to put a different beat to it because obviously we weren't going to get that clearance. And we ain't there
already-
yet. Ace, I mean, you got to make it happen, my brother. But until then, we put a different beat over it. And it's out now. You can listen to it.
Enjoy it. Enjoy yourself.
Enjoy technical rapping ability. It's still alive.
and enjoy wavy feel type music. We can appreciate it all.
You know, if we can name this episode, it's called Respect.
Respect.
We out on that. You're